And welcome back, everybody, to another episode of Bubba the Bat Flip, episode 88. Going to recap your week in FAAB once again. It's always entertaining, even though it's not as hectic as it once was. Wander Franco was already pretty much added everywhere to begin with. There's a few spots he got added, but it's pretty much a done deal, and he's already paid off that first night. Home runs, doubles. The bar is set high for Mr. Wander Franco. You can find me on Twitter at BDintric. My co-host is always on Twitter at BatFlipCrazy. Toby, how we doing, my friend?
We're doing pretty well, Bubba. You know, as many people are struggling with getting wins. It's like, what do you have to do? I had both Sandy Alcantara and Ross Stripling everywhere tonight. And I was like, okay, I should get one win. And it's like, no, we're going to both pitch gems and 1-1. So I'm hereby changing my tune, and I no longer support the win. I'm full in on the quality start or the quality start plus. That our friend John from MLB Moving Averages has put together. I've changed my tune.
Yeah, I think the quality start plus is the way to go. Like, because quality starts are still kind of a. If people haven't listened to it, John talks about it greatly. Last season, I had him on my show, and he broke it down like there's 4 different quality starts he actually built. I think quality start plus is probably the most legit one, but it makes more sense than 6 innings and 3 earned. But in that Tout Wars league I'm in, it's an innings pitched league instead of wins. So that helps a little bit because the White Sox blew the 3rd straight win for Lucas Giolito tonight. So that's been really, really fun. But hey, he gets me 6+ innings every time. In reality, that's all I need. So to strike him out and do that, we're good because, yeah, the wins are tough. And then I don't know about you. I guess we can go on a diatribe because we don't have a ton of listener questions tonight. But like I heard on Rates and Barrel, they were talking about stolen bases being an issue and all this stuff. And I know we talked about it in the past in the preview podcast, kind of trying to get balanced guys, at least some guys that help you here and don't just like get the complete zeros type guys. And that's paid off pretty well for me, at least this year. I'm doing very, very well on stolen bases in most leagues. I don't count Barf anymore. My Barf team is so just destroyed. It's not even funny. Every time I look at that roster, it's just like, wow, this is what I put together today. This is great. But like all my NFBC leagues and stuff, I have stolen bases, like even Tout Wars. I can't get power at all. I have no power. 0 power. All my home run guys are not hitting home runs. It is beyond me right now.
It's like saves for me. It's like the kryptonite. Whatever I touch just falls apart. So, but yeah, I mean, it is what it is.
Yep.
I want to know though. I mean, I know you had a big Father's Day on Sunday. You went to the Giants game, first game with your daughter. I want to hear how that went. It was a good game.
It was a great game. I told her over and over again because they had went back to back with home runs in the first. There was a combined 5 home runs hit in that game. I said, darling, I've been to many baseball games in my lifetime, many Giants games, and many times I leave the ballpark without 1 home run getting hit. I could probably count maybe 5 an entire season if I went to like 10 or 12 games. You just saw like the Giants scored double-digit runs tonight. Like you saw everything. It was great. You saw great pitching performance. You saw the bats go crazy. The only guy that didn't hit was Belt. Flores hit 2 home runs. Like you got the whole package. It was awesome. It was a lot of fun. She was a blast. There was a lot of babies actually in our section. It was pretty cool because it was the last game for the Giants that had the vaccinated and unvaccinated sections. So ours is the vaccinated section, which is the vaccinated was full. It was like strip of full, strip of empty, strip of full, like throughout the whole stadium. But starting this next series, it's full go like everything else. So we were where we were. It was just pretty much all the families and their kids. It was kind of cool. Like it wasn't planned that way, obviously, but all the babies like wanted to make a noise. They all started looking at each other, make another noise, and it was fun. Like she obviously has no clue what was going on, but she had fun when fireworks went off or things like she was having a blast and she made it. She was a trooper. We left after the 8th inning because they were blowing them out. It was awesome. I couldn't have asked for much more. It's probably the perfect day. So I had a lot of fun.
Cool. Bubba, leaving early. I mean, isn't that one of the cardinal rules of fandom? Never leave a game early. What kind of example are you trying to set for her?
Exactly. No, it was one of those they're up like 8 or 9 runs, and I'm looking at her. She was starting to fade pretty quick, and I'm like, okay, this is let's get to the car, get her in the car seat before traffic starts. Let's just get her home and like do that because it was about a 2.5 hour drive home. So I was like, get her in there, she'll fall asleep, we'll be good to go. And for the most part, it worked out pretty well. So yeah, it was. Yeah, my wife even says, "Wait, you want to leave?" Because she knows me, like I stay for everything. Like even Sharks games, the Sharks will be like winning or losing by like 3 or 4 goals. It's like we're staying until the end. Like just that's how it's going to go. So she knows that. She was very surprised to hear me say that. So it was a blast, though. I'm looking forward to doing it again with her. it's not like a rush to do it, but she behaved so well. Like I might be playing with fire, like testing fate to do it again. But the funniest part was most fans around me, they either had kids or they're like grandparents or something. There was a couple younger people though, because like she'd be kind of standing there holding the chair and she'd be like screaming, like not angry screaming, but just like screaming, fun little kids screaming. And most people were just laughing at her, like having fun with it. These two younger people were just like, what is she doing? I'm like, you're not going to stop her. So good luck. Like she's not going to stop anytime soon. So it was fun. It was very fun.
Very cool.
But how was your Father's Day?
It was good. It was good. My Father's Day is generally just involve like eating whatever I want to, that day.
Sweets.
Like I'm a very simple person, so I had donuts and a latte, for breakfast or for kind of lunchish. Because I got to sleep in, which was nice. And then, I had the cookie ice cream sandwich later on in the day, and it was all good. It was all good.
Perfect.
So,
perfect.
Yeah,
that's outstanding, and it's a good thing you have to sleep in because you do FAAB all night long, so that makes sense.
I do.
You got to do that.
My wife is actually a saint. She lets me sleep in on a lot of Sundays. So,
that's pretty outstanding.
Yeah.
That is outstanding. It was a good Father's Day, but the sleeping in part for the FAAB. Let's talk some FAAB. It was another interesting week. Like I said, Wander Franco got added everywhere. We really don't have to talk about Wander Franco. Top prospect, started his first game, hit second, played third, homer, doubled. He looks legit. Things are going to happen. There's going to be ups and downs as a prospect. Looks legit. The top added player this week, though, another prospect for the Miami Marlins, picked up in 264 leagues, as high as $249. That was one Jesus Sanchez. I put some small bids on him in certain places. I think he's got a good power bat. He's an interesting overall player. I don't know if he's going to stick when like Cooper and stuff comes back. That's my big concern. Where they called Franco up. He's Jesus Sanchez.
Oh, sorry, you froze there for a second, Bubba. But I think I'm back. Can you hear me all right?
Oh, sorry.
Oh, it's okay.
You're back.
It's okay.
Yep.
You're back. Okay, cool. Jesus Sanchez. I was not super aggressive on Sanchez, and I'm actually a little disappointed not because he hit a home run today off Ross Stripling. I mean, that's part of it. But he doesn't have the greatest plate discipline. Although if you look at it throughout his minor league career, the small sample in the majors doesn't look a lot like that. And so it may be just that small sample coming in. I mean, he doesn't have good plate discipline, but the contact skills have actually been, okay at different spots. And he's the type of prospect where, he comes with some pedigree, but the bids were all reasonable. They weren't like they weren't too ridiculous. And so I had him on there as some conditional bids. I even had him behind guys like Abraham Almonte, just because I was really looking at that, 5-game week to start off with. So who knows what he'll end up being, but certainly the fact he hit a ball 110 miles per hour already, and he's got those 2 home runs, like he's the type of player that I think is worth the risk. And so I'm a little disappointed that maybe I wasn't a little bit more aggressive where I could have used a player like him in some of my leagues.
Yeah, the prospect pedigree is great. He's been like a maybe 15 homer guy, maybe 10 steals, decent average in the minors. So he didn't really jump off the papers, but he crushed it this year in AAA in his 23 games, and that kind of got the early rise to the bigs. But I think it's more of a question is, does he stick when the guys come back? That's the real question. In theory, the Marlins don't have anything to really lose, so we'll see. At the same time, they might want to keep that clock from ticking. So keep an eye on that one. I think it's interesting. And the fact that you said is the bids weren't too crazy helps out a ton. So that's very good as well. The second most added player this week was Ross Stripling. You just hinted at him as high as $79. I know I grabbed him and I put bids in on him on like every league. I think I acquired him in like 1 or 2 of my NFBC FAAB leagues. I have like 4 NFBC FAAB leagues, nothing close to you. But I got him in at least 1 for sure, maybe 2. He's been outstanding like his last 3 or 4 starts, been really, really good. Was even decent on Tuesday night against the Marlins. He went 6 innings, 1 run, 7 Ks. Actually really good, not decent. So that gives him about 4 or 5 straight, like really, really good starts. He's been dealing, and he looks like be locked into that Toronto rotation. So I was liking him for the 2-step this week, but I think there's more to come with him as well.
Yeah, definitely. I loved him. I've loved him for a little while. I think this is the third time we've talked about him on the show as a guy who, he's had increased velocity. He's got a great two-step. I picked him up everywhere last week, I think. He has at Miami and then home against Baltimore, which you really can't ask for a better two-step than that. When you look at his last 5 games, rolling average, his in zone contact rate is below league average, 82.3%, which is really good. His O swing, and I think this is the key to his success, is up 32.7%. He's really struggled with that in recent years. The last year that he was good, which I think was 2019, he had a high O swing. So I was really happy to see that. Strikeout rate of 25.4% over those last 5 games. Walk rate of 7%, so about 18% K minus walk rate, which is great. Swinging strike rate at 12%. And as I mentioned before, the velocity has increased. So there's actually like a reason behind, why he's improved, and it continues to increase. So over his last 5 games, it's at 92.2, which is the fastest that his fastball has been, I think, in his major league career. So this is really a guy who's just a different pitcher than he has been previously because of those velocity increases. And he's been pitching well against teams like the Yankees and the Red Sox, except for the 2 times ago against the Red Sox. He's had some really tough matchups. But yeah, just really excited. I picked him up a bunch of places, in the last few weeks. He was actually available in one of my main events, and I bid $47 for him, and I lost out to a bid of 54. And I was so disappointed in myself. I was like, this was a potential game changer right here, and I wasn't aggressive enough. But you win some, you lose some. You win some, you
lose some. It's a good point you make, though. It's like we talk about streaming picks, and some people might just think, hey, he's a 2-starter this week, that's why they added him. But with Stripling, the changes you mentioned he's made, he's kind of rekindling that Dodger pitcher we once liked beforehand. We're like, and then when he got traded, we're like, sweet, now he's going to get to pitch every 5th day, and we're not going to worry about it. And then it kind of didn't work out so well. Obviously, some things changed, but pitching in Buffalo probably wasn't great for him either. There's a lot of factors in there, but you mentioned that the pitch mix changed, the increased velocity, which is always tremendous. There is a lot to like, and he's going to be one of those guys that potentially, as you said, you might just plug him in weekly now, which we're not going to get a ton of the rest of the way. We're going to get some guys here and there, but most of the ads, especially with how crazy spending has been, you're putting flyer bids out there on guys you're hoping stick, where Stripling has the pedigree and has already shown it for 5 or 6 starts now, where it's like, okay, I can feel comfortable more often than not. Now it stinks because, the AL East is just bananas, but he's going to have a lot of great matches where you exploit situations. This Marlins one was definitely one to have some fun with. So I'm with you on that. I think he was one of the more coveted bids I put out there this week, and I said I only got him in 1, I think, but that's partially because I just don't have a lot of money to be throwing out there in some leagues. So it is what it is. The next most added player, Matt Manning, a prospect for the Detroit Tigers, made his MLB debut against the Angels. 5 innings, 4 hits, 2 earned, 2 walks, 3 Ks. Not bad, nothing flashy. Didn't pitch well in AAA this year. ERA over 8, a little more than a K per inning for him. But people were buying into the pedigree. They were going for him. He went as high as 177 in one league, but most leagues I saw him in were not too crazy. I didn't even put a bid in on him. I was just like, you know what? I've seen these young pitchers. I've been burned by some already. I'd rather for the Striplings. I'd rather for a couple other guys we're going to talk about later on. I didn't even put a bid in for him.
Yeah, I was pretty similar. Yeah, I mean, he hasn't been impressive this year. Projections don't really like him. He wasn't really impressive in his first start. I mean, the results were okay, but the actual, underlying metrics didn't really show anything particularly special. He's on the Tigers, so going to be a little bit of a tough situation there in terms of getting wins and stuff like that. And you don't know how long he's going to be in there. Spencer Turnbull's coming back, hopefully in a few weeks. So I wasn't really aggressive. I don't really think I had any bids in on him anywhere. You can certainly see the prospect pedigree and where he was coming from was really high, but there wasn't anything that I really could see myself latching onto from his first start, which again could just be his first start and not representative of what he's going to do moving forward. But I like to see something at least to spark my interest.
Yeah, because we've talked before. Is I think we're both kind of guys that don't go crazy on prospects to begin with, and then secondly, we've seen the Gilbert and Logan Gilbert's. He's turned it around now. He's usable. Like I said a couple weeks ago, I picked him up in a couple leagues for like $21 recently, which makes me feel a lot better than the big bids. And at least I can justify in my head, okay, if I want to sit him or do this or that, if I have to drop him, it doesn't kill me. But we've seen even like on the Tigers in recent years, Casey Mize, Tariq Skubal, everyone was pumped to have them come up. They struggled. Now they figured it out, but this is like a year later. And it was a pitch mix change for these guys and stuff like that. So not that Manning can't do it, obviously, as you're saying. And the prospect pedigree is there. It's just with the budgets and as much as a season we still have to go, breaking the bank on a guy like Manning was not on my agenda. Johan, yeah.
And Logan Gilbert's a good example because when we talked about him after he struggled starting off with, there was actually things in his underlying skills that you could hold on to, right? Like, the swinging strike rate was good. We talked about how the K- walk was good. Like everything looked really good. And now we're starting to see those skills kind of play out as we get a larger sample, fewer balls falling in play, fewer home runs, things like that. That's what I'm kind of looking for whenever I'm looking at any pitcher, really, is just something to spark some hope that there is some sort of skill there, and yeah, and that can also be a flaw because I'll oftentimes miss out on the prospects of junior who, take that developmental leap,
I respect you for continually ragging on yourself, but I wouldn't. I know I've said it and many others have said it. You at least went at it from a purely like statistical, logical way. And, sometimes stuff happens. So that's the way it works.
I'm just having fun with it at this
point.
I know.
I appreciate that you are. It's just like, I hope people realize now it's more of we're laughing and like a shtick thing because it's like the dude's just unconscious. So what are you going to do about it? It's one of those deals. But lastly, on the Gilbert thing, which is also interesting, and this can just be a purely, I'm trying to find anything out of it besides just the underlying stats. Like I remember watching that first start, he was so jacked up, and I can't remember who we were watching. I was watching recently one of the debut kids, so jacked up he couldn't find the strike zone. And you're seeing Gilbert after these last few starts, he might just be getting comfortable. It's that simple. Like he's realizing, okay, I can pitch. It's the big leagues, okay, but it's me versus them still. So, and you've seen it in his starts, and those underlying stats helped obviously kind of get there. And he's young; he's going to have blow up still. Like I know for a fact I'm going to play him one week, and it'll look like great matchups. He's going to get shelled for like 6 because he's young, and they do goofy things from time to time. That's just how it works. But I think he's actually legit. So we'll see. We'll see. Manning might be there eventually. Manning might be a guy that we talk about this offseason as a 21st round guy we're willing to take a flyer on, and he comes in as like a 12th round finisher next year. Guy like that makes that next leap. But we'll see. He might just – it's just weird in season to see that kind of jump. Johan Oviedo. Picked up in 198 leagues as high as $44. He's been picked up and dropped a few times for streaming situations because the Cardinals have picked him up and dropped him back down to AAA a few times this season. He had a 2-step this week. I talked about it on my Quick Hits, my DFS show, is I like his stuff, but he doesn't have strikeout stuff. That's the frustrating part for me. And in fantasy, I want the strikeouts, especially if we're not getting wins, Toby. We got to get something out of this. And he even did it tonight. He pitched okay for the times he was in the game, didn't go deep into the game. And he didn't have many strikeouts. And that's just been a consistent repertoire from him. If you look at his game logs, it's like 3 strikeouts, 2, 4. Like it's never domination. And that's why I couldn't go in on Oviedo. Like I put like $1, $2 bids out there just because I needed a live arm. But I wasn't going hardcore on him. Like I know some people love him a lot. So I could be missing something. So what's your thoughts?
Yeah, I stayed away from him everywhere except for one league. And I made the mistake that I always seem to make where, I get a few weeks without having a massive blow up, and then I'm like, well, I could dip my toe into the water on these like, purely 2-start good matchup, 2 starts. And that's what it was. And it wasn't great today. I mean, he gave up 4 unearned runs, so he only gave up 2 earned runs in a little more than 3 I think it was like 3 1/3 or 3 2/3 innings. But the whip was not great. 9 hits and walks during that time. Walks have been the issue, as you mentioned before. I mean, there is something of interest. 11.8% swinging strike rate there. So there's something that. The CSW is below league average, but it's not awful. but yeah, there really wasn't enough here to really go after him. And I think, it's always hindsight 2020, but I think this is one of those kind of quintessential, the only reason why you're picking up a guy because he's got 2 good starts, and there's not really anything to hang your hat on, and you get burned. I'm just hoping the Pittsburgh start doesn't end up going too poorly. Who knows? Maybe I'll luck out.
You never know. Pittsburgh's slowly becoming a sneaky team. It's either all or nothing, it seems like, when they play. They either put up a complete goose egg as a team, or they go out and put up like 7 or 8 runs. They're just a really goofy team right now, but Frazier and Reynolds smoking hot. So we'll see on that one. Michael Fulmer came back from the IL, picked up in 189 leagues, as high as 171, stepped right back in. He's picked up a few saves. Seems to be their guy until they trade him. Like, it makes sense what they're doing. It makes total sense. Like, showcase him, let's trade him. Then we can go back to Soto and Cisnero and do that whole dance again. So it makes a lot of sense what they're doing. He's been very good, though. I'll give him that much. Like, not every save is perfect, but overall he's been pretty better than I expected for Michael Fulmer. So I didn't put any bids on him this week because I wasn't paying that much, but I still had him in a couple leagues already. So that's where I sat on him.
Yeah, I didn't either. He was gone in all the 15-teamers I think that I was in, and in the 12-teamers I think he was available in 1 league, but I'm pretty sure I was set on closers, although you can't really be set on closer these days. I shouldn't take that for granted. But yeah, I mean, he's been good. He's been solid. Every time I think I know what that Detroit bullpen is going to do, they just make me look foolish. So I've been made foolish again. Like I had Gregory Soto and I targeted him and got him in a few places, and I was super excited. And then Fulmer gets 2 straight saves, and it's really hard to have guys in your lineup who aren't getting the saves consistently because, especially in an overall or anytime you need innings, you need wins, you need Ks. It can be a challenge to have those guys who aren't really getting you saves in every opportunity. So yes, Michael Fulmer, a good pickup. We'll see what ends up happening with him.
Yeah, just be prepared closer to the trade deadline to grab a Soto or a Cisnero if you sit on your waiver wire, because that's coming. Patrick Sandoval for the Los Angeles Angels of Anaheim picked up in 175 leagues, as high as 169. We talked about him a bit in recent weeks because he dominated with that 10 strikeout performance a couple starts ago. He's made 6 starts now for the Angels. He's pitched at least 5 innings in 5 straight starts, no more than 3 earned in any start. Only did that once. And in his last 3 starts, he struck out at least 9 twice. He's been looking really, really good. I know the pitch mix change has been there. Alex Fast and Pitcherless have raved about it with their gifts and everything about the curveball usage and the whiffs he's getting. His CSW was through the roof that one start. So, you get 2 out of 3 starts with 9+ Ks. Something's working pretty good. And Sandoval, it wasn't like he just came out of nowhere. A couple of years ago, he was actually decent and looking like he had hope, and then kind of disappeared. I know I grabbed him late in best ball drafts and some DCs, so I've been able to luckily plug him in there. But I was not able to get him in any redraft leagues. Your thoughts on him?
Yeah, he wasn't available in any of my 15-teamers, but I got him in all 3 of my 12-teamers. We talked about him last week, so I won't belabor the point, but he's got a really great repertoire. The fastball is not great, but the changeup and the slider, I think, are really good pitches. And, he's generating a ton of whiffs. The K-minus walk rate is pretty good, 15.4%, slightly above league average. But swinging strike rate is great. And I think the thing with him, too, is the ground ball rate super, super high, 53% this year. It's always been above 50%. And so that will limit some of the damage as well, especially with those control issues that he has. So certainly he'll have some blowups, but, I think he's in a position to be fairly, successful, I think. And I like him. I like him a lot.
Yeah, no, I'm with you there. And that was the thing. He's always been a big-time ground ball guy, but now he's getting those strikeouts on top of it. So it's a beautiful thing that he's putting together there. Next up on our list here, Bailey Ober picked up in 165 leagues, as high as 160. I put out some small bids. I got him in a few leagues. I really liked what I saw from him. The 2 things I was always concerned about is I knew he wasn't going to go deep. The Twins have already said we're limiting things, but I just wanted good quality innings and strikeouts. I got neither of those. on Tuesday against the Twins. So that was fun. Again, it was only in leagues where I was desperate. Like I had so many IL guys coming on. I'm like, I just need pitchers. I need bodies. And so Ober was a guy. I'm like, I'll throw out $4 on him or something to see what flies. I got him in 2 leagues. He's obviously in the lineup for this week for a second start. We'll see how it goes. It's a guy that, again, he's not going deep. So I understand if you don't like him, but just the quality of innings he was giving and the strikeouts, I was on board for.
Yeah. I wasn't really interested in him at all. I mean, I can see like the results have been really good so far, but when you look kind of under the hood, 8.9% swinging strike rate, that CSW is 28.6, I think, which is fine, but not great. In zone contact rate, 91%. So really has trouble in the zone, getting people to swing and miss. The O swing is really nice at 34.4%. And obviously the K- walk rate is tremendous at 27.5% heading into today. But I just didn't really see it, with the underlying metrics to be that interested. So I stayed away from him, but I can certainly see why people were intrigued. He seems to be a guy who maybe gets a little bit more out of his repertoire because of the extension. Like he's, I think, close to 7 feet tall. But like if you look at his pitch mix, his best pitch is the slider, 11.9% swinging strike rate, 37.5% O swing. That's the only pitch with double-digit swinging strike rate, and those are generally the guys that I, stay away from for better or worse. And giving up a lot of balls in the air. So it was a tough outing for him today, but we'll see how he does. I don't think he's in. I think he gets 2 starts next week because they have
That's right.
They have Wednesday off. They have that weird schedule that tripped me out.
But that shows you just how desperate I was because I needed to use him on this week. That's how things are going.
Well, at home against Cincinnati, I mean,
I thought I was at least a give me 4 innings, limit the damage type situation. Let's go.
Yeah.
Couldn't even do that. Couldn't do it.
Next week, he's got that brutal one where he's at the White Sox to start, and then he's at KC for the second one. So you're like, oh,
crossing your fingers.
Do I do this? Yeah. So again, I think there was reasons to be really interested in him. The skills don't really show him being a really good pitcher at this point in time, which again can always change on a dime. So we'll see.
The one thing I will say, the caveat I will give, and of course Fangraphs is failing me now, is this this White Sox offense is not the White Sox offense we've grown to love of late. So that's one thing I will look at. Let's just do the last month for fun here. It is June 22nd, so the last month would be May 25th. And just versus right-handed pitchers, the White Sox, because I do this for DFS every day, they're striking out 24% of the time, but they only have a 233 average and a 95 WRC plus. So they're like average to below average now. They're not like crushing it like they once were. They still scare the crap out of me. I'm not going to be like it's there. You're waiting for the beast to awaken, but they've slowed down quite a bit. So
yeah, the righties against the White Sox, I'm not as worried about.
Yeah, it's the lefties, and they've even slowed down there. They're like, even look at tonight's start against Alexander. He shut them down for a while. It's a
gosh, what a roller coaster. Giolito's pitching a great game.
Yep.
And then they give up the 3-run homer, or White Sox get a 3-run homer, so he's in line for the win. And then they come back and blow it the next inning.
Yep. 3 straight blown wins for him. Yeah. Beautiful. Beautiful. With Alex Bregman hitting the IL for what has been told to us a long time, it's going to be a while, was the word. Abraham Toro has been the starting third baseman for the Astros. Got picked up in 158 leagues for as high as 171. That's a bit aggressive, but he is playing every day in a very, very good Astros lineup. The minor league numbers really didn't jump off the page to me, but they're going with them. He had a 4-game hitting streak before he snapped it tonight. He stole a bag. He had a home run over that stretch. He's walking a good amount, not striking out a ton. Like, it's a super small sample of good production because before that, it's not been good production. But it's one of those, it's like, hey, he's going to play every day in that kind of lineup, and that lineup's red hot right now. So what's your thoughts on Toro? Because I could see the point of giving him a try while you need him.
Yeah, I like him a lot. If you look at what he's done in the minors, like he didn't hit last year when he was in the big leagues. Got or the last 2 years, really. The batting average has been low, but he's not striking out a ton. The skills are okay. 33% O swing for his career, but the contact's really high, 81.3%, 30% hard hit rate, which isn't that great. The Statcast data isn't that terrific, but I think these are the types of guys that, they don't end up, costing that much FAAB. And it looks like he's the third baseman, like you said, for the foreseeable future. He's batting sixth, probably seventh when Tucker comes back, which I hope is soon.
Yeah, please, God, hurry up!
I know, especially for
before
this
Friday,
week, man. This
I
week,
need it bad. Like all these good games, like all these, like there's war, all this stuff. Like they have the greatest matchups, the 7-game week, all this stuff, and he's just, he's COVID.
Yeah. So, so I think, I think it's nice. And the thing is, you can have them in, they get Baltimore this week, they got Detroit this week, they got Baltimore next week. I think they also have like somebody not very good the second half of next week again, and they have 7 games both weeks. So put him in. If he doesn't succeed in that, then maybe move on from him. But I like that pickup. Yeah,
no, I like that one a lot. The next one I was kind of in on, didn't get him anywhere because apparently more people were in on him than I was. But Erick Fedde, a guy I've made fun of many times because he just hasn't been that great. Like he's been very hittable over his career. Like he throws a good start here or there and gets like 3 bad starts in a row. It's just the Fedde way. But he got picked up in 139 leagues, and if you look at his recent starts, they've been outstanding. I know there's a pitch mix change. He's even getting strikeouts. He's looked really, really good. And it's like, I don't think he's the Ross Stripling pickup of the week, but I was like, okay, I can kind of buy into using Erick Fedde for the foreseeable future, at least in a streaming situation on your roster. So I was kind of intrigued by Fedde. What about you?
Yeah, he's been okay this year. I wasn't in on him. He wasn't available in any of my 15-teamers, so that may be one of the reasons. But he's another one of these guys where you kind of dive in, and there's not a lot to hold on to here. K- walk rate is 12.9%, so worse than league average. His swinging strike rate is 8.2%, well below league average. His O swing at 29.4%, is below league average. His in-zone contact rate at 89% is below league average. So everything is pretty much below average. He does generate a number of ground balls, 52% ground ball rate, but then you look at his BABIP. His BABIP's at 241 right now. His home run rate is like almost, 1/2 of what it usually is. So my guess is, his home run per fly ball is down at 12.2%. It's 19.6% for his career. So maybe guys aren't making as good of contact, but they are. Like his average exit velocity is the same. His barrel rate is the same. Hard hit rate is about the same. So, there's some regression coming for him. The velo is higher than it's been before, 93.9, so around 94. You mentioned the pitch mix change with the cutter that he's kind of added to his repertoire. Let's see how good of a pitch that is, though. The cutter is decent pitch, 13.1%, swinging strike rate, 31.9%, O swing, decent in the zone. So, again, I'd be interested to see, if he's increasing his usage of that.
He's definitely
throughout the course of the year.
Well, especially over like his last 3 starts. Like you look at his pitch mix, he's got more like slider cutter change in his last like 3 starts. He threw a lot of fastballs in his last start, but before the 2 starts prior to that was a massive change compared to like most of the season. So that's what I'm talking about. I've heard from some other guys is like his last 3 starts or so, you've seen a much different approach to his pitching.
Yeah.
And that's where I was intrigued by what we saw there.
Yeah, for sure. And one thing I'm noticing in his 5-game rolling average is just the in-zone contact is much better. I mean, it's still at league average, 85.8%, but that's so much better than where he is for the full season. And so those are the types of changes, that you got to make, that you got to keep your eye on, because they can make a huge difference. Although recently his cutter usage is down a little bit.
He dropped it off last game. Yeah, it was like spiked up for like 3 games and it dropped down. Because I'm looking at the Savant chart. I was looking at Fangraphs at first, but Savant's got some different pitch mix than that Fangraphs page.
Yeah, and the changeup is a totally new pitch. He hadn't threw it before this year.
I think that's part of it as well. So, like I remember hearing, I think it was Simeone was doing one of his pitcher breakdowns, and the addition of the changeup, basically the addition of the changeup, using fewer fastballs and either using more curves or cutters. Like it varies. If you look at start to start, that varies. Like he switches. Maybe it's just the attack on the team they're facing. I don't know, or the feel in the bullpen. But just the changeup in general,
batters,
yeah. So that's been the big change. And he ditched the sinker. He ditched it completely. He threw it his first game of the season, and he hasn't used it really since. Looking at this chart, so that's been the kind of development. He's turning into a different pitcher right now. Could he fall flat on his face again? No doubt about it. Like that wouldn't shock me because, again, I said I've made fun of him for the last few years. Like I like to stack against him every time he was pitching in Washington.
Yeah.
But like I'm just starting to watch him now. Like he shut down the Giants. Not even being a homer, like their offense is good, and he shut them down. He's had some really good starts of late. That really, and he's going deep. He's gone at least, I think. Let me pull it. I got it right here. He went 7 innings in 2 of his last 3 starts. He hasn't given up a run in 3 straight starts. 6 Ks or more in 2 straight. So I know there's like the walks are kind of down. Like there's things that are kind of pointing in the right direction. I know you look at a bunch of the deeper stats on that, but I'm just looking at the changes in recent games, thinking maybe he's going some other direction, and intrigued me quite a bit.
So, wow, yeah, he hasn't given up a run in 19 innings.
Yep.
So yeah, but it's interesting. Yeah, it's with a very high ground ball percentage as well. So yeah, maybe he's figured something out. For sure, it's quite possible. I mean, yeah, I'm always like a little bit of I'm a little bit of a cynic, I guess, which is unfortunate, but it's kind of like Ryan Yarborough. He was doing super well, right? He had that stretch of really good. And I was looking at, kind of the metrics, and like the one thing that stood out was his BABIP was like 115 during that period of time, and those are the types of things that always regress. But the question is, like, if you bank those stats beforehand, it's a whole lot better than when you get the regression like you have the last couple starts with him. So, we'll see, but really interesting dynamic certainly going on there with Fedde.
And let me correct something I said. He's still using the sinker a ton. He ditched the four-seam fastball. That's what he ditched.
Yeah, that makes sense with the ground ball.
Balls. But then I changed his game logs just like the last 3 starts, the 19 innings, and you're onto something as well, like usual. He has a 200 BABIP over that stretch, 100% left on base percentage over that stretch, a near 64% ground ball rate, which is good. So a 0 ERA, but a 2.32 FIP, 3.16 xFIP, which in reality I'd still take right now with him if that's where he's trending to. So we'll see. It's going to be interesting. I don't know if he's the gas can I used to portray him as. I just don't know. Like, it's one of those. It's weird. I kind of trust him more than I trust Joe Ross. It's just because Joe Ross, I just can't get my pulse on him at all. He's like a weird one for me. So I don't know. We'll see. I might regret all of this conversation. All right, let's go to another one. Another prospect that we saw everyone's pumped on when Bobby Bradley was called up last year. Didn't really get it done in a very small sample. It was 2019 when he got called up. He didn't get called up in 2020. 2019, he hit .178 over 23 games, hit 1 home run. Well, we're seeing a new Bobby Bradley. They said he made some changes at the alt site, which is great. He started out really good in AAA this year, and he's hitting .283 with 5 homers to start off this campaign since he's been playing pretty much every day, hitting in the middle of that Cleveland order. Honestly, if you need a power source, this guy intrigues me. Like we talked last week about Vogelbach, but that was because he's in Coors. Sure, guys like those kind of players. I think Bobby Bradley, if he's playing every day in Cleveland, hitting in the middle of the order, I think he's very viable if someone's in need of power situation.
Yeah, totally. Yeah, I mean that's what I think you gotta be focused in on with him. I mean, he's got a 45.5% home run to fly ball rate. The contact is about where it's been previously. 64.5%, so significantly below league average. But like you mentioned, I mean, he hits the ball incredibly hard. 114 max exit velo. Where did that go? It disappeared on me. 114.2 max exit velo. So we know he's elite there. He's already got 7 barrels, 1.9% barrel rate. So again, I think he's going to be one of these profile guys where you catch him on the hot streak, you may get 10 home runs in a month, and then you're going to get a month that it's like 120 or 150 batting average, and a couple home runs. And so I think you just got to play it and ride it while he's hot, ride it while he's got good matchups, and then don't be hesitant to pull him out of your starting lineup or move on from him when things go south a little bit.
Yeah, because I do. If he's maybe he's made the complete change. We'll see. but there's going to be a slump usually with him. So just be ready for that. But the power is legit. And like you said, he's on a hot streak. Roll with it. Like he may be what we hoped Rowdy Tellez was going to be this season. He's got that kind of power. So really think about that one if you're going to go look for him. The next one's fun, Toby. I know we kind of talked about him last week, but I need to bring him up again. Dalton Varshill's picked up in 128 leagues. Someone spent $225 on him. Bold strategy. I know Kelly's going to be out for a while with the, I believe it's broken hand, fractured hand, something like that. He got hit by a pitch again. I'm still not sold on Varsho. They still play Vote a ton. But what I will say, the reason why I want to bring this up, Varsho stole a base tonight.
Did he?
Yes.
Wow, that's nice.
I had to bring that up.
It's all worth it, Bubba. All those times I drafted him in DCs, it's all worth it for that stolen.
It's all coming together.
That's all I needed. Yeah, I mean, I think Varsho, I mean, he struggled a lot, every time in the majors. I think the one thing that gives me some hope, just a little bit of hope, is the contact rate. The BABIP's been super low. And again, we're dealing with only less than 200 plate appearances here. 240 BABIP in his career. Contact rate at 72.6%, so not too bad. In zone, not great. So slightly below league average, but I don't think it's like the 29% strikeout rate that he's showing so far. So again, if he can ride himself into a little bit of luck, and God knows the Diamondbacks need it. I mean, talk about, it might be interesting. It might be interesting to, I don't think Soria is going to gain much traction on the waiver wire. Like if he's on your waiver wire, nobody's going to be interested because the D-backs are so bad. But no team is this bad. It's not like you look at their lineup and you're like, it's the worst lineup ever put together, right? And so, I might be looking at Soria next week in leagues where he was dropped, where I'm so desperate for saves, because what goes down must come up. Happens even for really, really bad teams. And this is a team that can still win 4 or 5 games in a week, a few times this year. And so, and they're due for a little bit of a run. So don't totally write them off. Anyways, that ended up being a Joakim Soria, who's awful, and I would never recommend getting. But if you're really desperate for saves, maybe. But Dalton Varsho's fine, and especially with catchers. I mean, thankfully, I only have one league where I have a crap catcher, and I'm rotating that. I had Astudillo, now I've got Jeffers, which is fine. I got lucky there because he was 90% owned in main events, but it's so bad. Like Varsho is better than all those other options you're treating. Just
speaking of which, is your top catcher. I did get to see him go yard on Sunday. That was nice.
Oh, so JTR.
JTR deep one. I thought of you immediately. So. Yes, that was great. Did you see what happened to the D-backs lineup tonight?
I saw that Peralta has 9 Ks in 5 innings.
Ketel Marte left with an injury, first inning.
Oh, yeah.
I was so bummed about that.
I saw that. So did Justin Upton.
Yeah, Justin Upton left. It's just, it's fun. Baseball's fun. Baseball's fun. Lots of fun. So that'll kind of end the list. Like, there's a lot of interesting moves, like Taylor Ward's a guy that I like a bit. Flexen was picked up in a lot of places. He's pitching really well on Tuesday night. Caleb Smith, if you're really deep and want to get frisky, he's actually pitching decent since he's back on the rotation.
Yeah.
There's like Colby Allard threw well. This is where we are at this time of the season. It's kind of the Erick Fedde model. Are you buying the changes? All of a sudden they're pitching well. Are you not? Like, were you taking your chances? All I'm going to say is, if you want to take chances on these guys, fine. Don't break the bank for them, please. That's all I say. Just don't break the bank for them. Any other additions that kind of stood out to you this week?
Flexen. I like Flexen a lot. He wasn't available. He was only available in one of my 15 teamers, but he's got a pitch mix change. Flexen has a pitch mix change. I want to say he's throwing his fastball a lot less. He's throwing his changeup and I think a slider, might be a curveball, throwing it a lot more. And so I really liked him because if you look at what he's doing, I mean, he's not walking guys. He's giving up contact, but he's got decent pitches, generating the right kind of contact. So I liked Flexen. Where I could pick him up, I was certainly interested in him. Abraham Almonte is playing every day and batting cleanup for the Braves. So, and he had 5 games this week. I think he's got 8 total or nine total this week. So he was another guy that I really liked a lot. Just for this week, pretty much, or if he continues to get play all the time, because it's so hard with outfielders. I mean, it's really hard to find outfielders who are getting consistent run out there. Chas McCormick, if he continues to get run, it'll be interesting to see what happens when Tucker comes back. Is it McCormick that sits, or do they give, or do they sit Miles Straw? Straw actually hasn't been. I don't know. I should check it out.
He went deep today. He's got like 2 home runs over the last week or so, give or take. Stolen a few bags. He's played better of late. I'll give him that. Overall, it has not been great. But
he's got very good plate discipline. Is the one thing that's
outstanding. And if you can, the way that lineup's so good, if you can bat him 9th and wrap it around with Altuve and company, get on base for those guys, I think you almost want to keep Straw in the lineup. But we'll see. We'll see.
And I imagine, I'm just assuming because he's fast, but that Straw is a good defensive center fielder. But
yeah,
we'll see. I may be making that up. Odorizzi obviously looked really good against the Orioles. It was the Orioles, but
wow.
I can't believe JP Crawford is still available in some places. He's got a big power uptick recently.
Yep.
I think it's because he's hitting fewer ground balls. Whether that'll stick or not, I'm not really sure. Jake Bowers, I looked under the hood. It wasn't super interesting. The only place I picked him up was in a 20-team dynasty league.
I picked him up in Barf. I'm desperate.
You did? Oh, nice. OBP, it's a little bit better.
Yeah.
And then who was I going to say? Oh, Greg Holland got another save tonight. So who knows? Who knows what's going to happen there? So yeah. I think we got a comment over here.
Yeah, we'll get to that in just a second. A second. The only other guy besides that you didn't mention, Tony Kemp, I just want to bring him up because I think I've written about him in 2 of the last 3 weeks in the outfield waiver wire column because no one picks him up. And I get it. It's frustrating, but the A's are batting him towards the top of the order most days. He's got lots of speed. He's actually showcasing a little bit of power. But most importantly, the way you mentioned Miles Straw, Tony Kemp over the last 2 to 3 weeks is walking over 22% of the time. The dude is getting on base and scoring a ton of runs. So you're not drafting him for power. Again, he'll give you a little speed, and he's second base outfield eligible, which will come in handy as well. So I'm not saying he's a must add. He's definitely a deep league ad, but I'm just blown away doing that column every week, and I have to use X percentage rostered guys. There's some players that just blow my mind. I know it's Yahoo that I have to use, and that's a whole different world. But it's crazy. Some of these leagues, I'm like, I want to be in these leagues so bad. Not just him, like Jock Peterson's 25% owned. I'm like, what? Where does this exist? Sign me up. Kyle Schwarber's still less than 50% owned as of last week in Yahoo. Whatever. But yes, I mentioned his name as guys that got added, and Alex Thistlewood is a great listener to the show. He jumped into the chat over here as we're live on YouTube and StreamYard and Periscope, all that good stuff, and Twitter. And he asked, can we do a deep dive on Colby Allard? And it's a good one because he's made 4 starts in his last 4 appearances, and he's gone 5 innings in his last 3. He's given up no more than 2 earned in any of those 4 appearances, 6 Ks in 2 of those appearances. His pitch mix has been interesting because he mentioned he was really good against the Dodgers. Well, against the Dodgers, he threw a ton of changeups and kind of dropped his four seam usage in that game. Basically, his drop in four seam was increased by the changeups. Does that continue? Who knows? But when you're looking at underneath the hood right now, Toby, what are you seeing on a guy like Colby Allard?
Well, I mean, for the full season, 40 innings pitched, 43 strikeouts. I'm a little skeptical of the strikeout rate. It's at 26.5% right now. The swinging strike rate's around league average, 10.8%. The CSW is at 26.9%, which is well below league average. So there's nothing in the strikeout skill set, including the in-zone contact, 84.8%, that really points toward that higher than league average strikeout rate being sustainable. I think the key being the walk rate. But even that, I mean, he's worse than league average O swing, decent in the zone, gets behind hitters a lot. He has his worst first pitch strike percentage. It'd be interesting to check out his percent of pitches that's balls. But then if we take a look at his last 4, because you said those have been his starts.
Those are all
right?
starts. Yeah, he's actually been in the rotation.
Yeah. Yeah, I know he was available in one of my leagues. So in his 4 starts, in-zone contact rate is around league average, 84.9%. His O swing is up at 30.7%, so right around league average. K rate's at 26.3%. The walk rate has fallen to 5.3%. Swinging strike rate has also fallen, though, below 10% to 9.9%. I know that I saw a tweet from Matt Modica about like a change in pitch mix that maybe he's utilizing. The change percentage is up slightly.
Yep.
Fastball percentage is way down.
Yep.
Yeah. But what is he throwing instead?
Looks like a cutter potentially. Cutter and a changeup.
The cutter.
Good
old
like.
Cutters. Cutters is up. Cutter is up a little bit, but I don't think that's.
He's got a cutter and a curveball.
He
uses
throw?
I think
he throws a curveball too. The curveball is up dramatically.
Okay.
From earlier on in the season, 16.9%.
Oh yeah, no, there. Yeah.
So definite pitch mix change. Let's see what. But the interesting thing is like the skills haven't actually improved that much. So like his curveball does have a 14.5% swinging strike rate, which is the highest of all of his pitches, which is actually it makes it much better than it has been previously in his career. I mean, for his career, it's a god awful pitch. 8.8% swinging strike rate, 19.8% chase rate. So slightly better there. The 4-seam is generating a 10.8% swinging strike rate, so that's pretty good there too. The cutter actually it gets more chase outside the zone. Still a ton of contact in the zone. Not great swinging strike rate pitch. If I were to guess, I would say that Allard is going to get blown up here sometime soon. Would be my guess.
Yeah,
just because he has some regression. Even with that pitch mix change, like I gotta see something better.
Yeah, Allard's a guy I like to attack a lot when it comes to DFS. He's proven me wrong the last few times, obviously. But the other caveats I'll mention just from knowing team splits of late, he pitched well against Seattle. That's Seattle. Tampa Bay struggles a lot versus lefties, so you got that going for you as well. The Dodgers was surprising, but if you go under the hood on the Dodgers, they've been really bad over the last month. The Dodgers and the Padres are not who they appear to be right now. So you got that going for you. And then Minnesota, that's interesting, but they're also beat up too. Like he attacked 4 teams that are all underachieving at the moment. So kudos. He did what he's supposed to do in those starts, but he didn't go deep into them. Didn't get a ton of strikeouts in 2 of the 4. It's interesting. It's very interesting. So maybe he's making – I know there are people that like him a lot. I think I heard Eno talking about him or something, that he likes his stuff and everything, but I don't know. I see what you're looking at, and it's hard to 100% buy in on that situation, but the Rangers will run him out there quite a bit, so they got that going for him. All right, a couple more listener questions here as Alex got us kicked off on this one. Let's start with the biggie. Our buddy, I will start Dan the Goat. I forgot he was the first one. Our buddy, the Byron Buxton fan club president. Sorry for your loss. At what point?
Byron Buxton will not be a first-round draft pick next year.
No, he will not, unfortunately. At what point in the season do you start to be seriously concerned about struggling stars? I mean, it's nearly July and Juan Soto has a 430 slug. That's amazing if you're Carl Crawford. Soto has been the biggest disappointment in all of fantasy at this point. He has not been the biggest disappointment in all of fantasy at this point. I will be very clear about that. Has he been a disappointment? Sure. The biggest disappointment? No. So I will fight that one until I'm red in the face.
Do you have leagues cast you on any of your teams, Dan?
Yeah, like we could go down a laundry list of guys that have been disappointing this year that aren't named Juan Soto. Juan Soto was hurt. I think we talked about this a couple weeks ago. He was hurt. He's coming back. So let's get off.
Didn't he have COVID earlier in the year too? Like
that was last season. That was last season. But okay. he was on the IL for a while this year. He's still doing his thing slowly but surely. It's not ideal. I 100% understand what he's saying, but let's take a deep breath here for a second and take a step back. You look at all his X stats jump off the page. His exit velocity is still good. His max EV still good. All of his XBA, X slug, X WOBAs, whatever X you want to put in front of it, are all outstanding. It's his highest hard hit rate he's had in his career right now. He's still walking at a decent clip. I said it a couple weeks ago. I'll say it again. I am not concerned about Juan Soto at this point in time.
You want to know what I'll say? This is what I'll say. I'll say if you add together his 2020 season and his 2021 season together, that's probably his true talent level.
Yeah.
Because, and that's one of the things is last year wasn't real. You know, like last year was not like, and we, you know, I'll take my hits, but I think in our preview episodes, I said Juan Soto was the guy going at the top of drafts. That was the biggest concern to me. And it's like, you know, he had a 363 BABIP, which was way above what he had been. You know, his home run per fly ball was 36.1%, which also not only contributes to his power, but also to his batting average. You know, in his other two full seasons, right? 292, 282. You know, he's hitting 276 this year. So, you know, again, like I think he's really, really good, but I think our expectations were a little high given what he was able to do in the shortened season. And I think what you're seeing potentially is just, you know, like season to season, like regression. Like he had this great kind of 90th percentile, 95th percentile outcomes in this 2020 season. And now he's probably at like, you know, 25th or 30th percentile. And I bet he'll probably go on a hot streak here sometime soon. And then he'll be hitting like 290, you know, and he'll end up with 30 home runs, 10 stolen bases, 100, and, you know, it'll be good. But yeah, I mean, I think the thing is disappointment is one thing. Not meeting your expectations is one thing, but he's not a guy who you're not losing your lead because of what Juan Soto is doing.
Bingo. Like if you went in drafting him for his season he had when he nearly won the MVP, well, you weren't going to get those numbers. Like basically what Toby's saying, that those are like 100th percentile like situations, maybe 110th percentile situations. He was definitely going to regress back to a very, very, very good baseball player. That's going to help you in 4 to 4.5 categories, and you're going to be very happy about that. And the only leagues I drafted him high in were OBP leagues, so that's where I'm happy about that too, because that's what he does. But yeah, no, it's funny if people think he was a disappointment. That's wild. Like if he continues this the whole season, we can have the discussion. But again, even if he continues at this pace, he's probably not losing your league, like Toby said, because if anything, he's going to play the rest of the season. So that's ahead of a lot of people right now. All right, Dave Petroziello. This is a long one. So give me a second here.
It's great. It's a good question.
Are you using Magic 8 balls to make these decisions? I know one guy in the community that has a top 5 overall team has Chapman and Iglesias as his closers, so there's something to be said for that. My strategy this year was to get one top guy, or at least a guy from the Presley-Kinley tier, and take some shots later. That worked on some teams with Barnes and not so well with others like Bass. Given what these managers are doing and how tough getting saves is becoming, will Toby modify that strategy next year or maybe mix it up? One team doesn't use any capital on closers, and maybe another team gets one solid guy, and maybe another important team try to get 2 top-end guys, although I doubt Toby will do that. So basically, because you're a guy that likes to wait on closers, which usually works well. This has just been a bizarre as heck season. So how do you see looking into it next year?
Yeah, it's been a tough season for sure. And you have to own it too, though. Like when you have a strategy and it's worked for you in the past and you tout it because it's worked for you in the past, and then it doesn't work for you, regardless of why it's not working. I mean, you have to kind of own up to that as well. So definitely been a failure in that respect this year. But in terms of next year, I mean, I think this year is dramatically different for a couple reasons. I think one primary reason, and that is that so few teams are actually sticking with a single closer. Like it's one thing to have turnover in the closer position. I think that happens every year, but it's another that there's so many teams that are now implementing a closer by committee where without even like, it's not like they're alternating, you know, it's not like this guy gets a save and then this guy gets a save or, you know, whatever. It's just like, who knows, right? Like the Tigers we talked about, you know, the Reds we talked about, the Royals we talked about, like all these teams, you know? And so really there's so few locked in closers who are like the guys that I think it makes it more important to get a guy who's locked in that role. Now, even with like my approach, like I was really high on Anthony Bass coming into the year. And I think of my like 6 15-team leagues, that I am pretty heavily invested in. I think I had him in 4. And he's a really good example of like the volatility of closers. Like he sucked his first 2 outings. He had 2 terrible outings that were both save opportunities. Then he had something like 14 or 15 straight outings without giving up a run, but he had already lost the closer's gig, so he wasn't in there. So the timing was just bad, but he didn't get the job, and so then I was out, and I speculated on the wrong guys, and so what has happened is your absolute nightmare of what happens, which is you go into a season, you think you've got decent shot at closers, you end up with 0 in a lot of cases. So you spend all of the early FAAB where other people are spending it going after, the guy who's breaking out hitting or the guy who's doing this. You spend all of your time analyzing closer situations and trying to speculate on closers so that you can have a closer to be invested, to have on your team so that you're actually getting saves. And you waste a bunch of FAAB. And these things have never happened to me before, honestly. Like I've maybe once or twice in unique situations, but generally I've been able to compete in saves and generally been able to, but I just haven't this year. And so it's definitely going to change my approach next year. It won't necessarily mean that I'm going after like a Liam Hendricks in round 4 or a Josh Hader in round 4, but it definitely means that I want to have a guy who's definitely got that closer role. And I had that this year. So maybe it's making sure that I have 2, because in previous years, I've actually been able to do that where I got those 2. And so maybe that's where I erred, but it's certainly going to make me draft closers earlier on than I usually would. It'll depend on what the draft situation looks like and what teams are saying and what it looks like. But I will certainly bump closers up, I think, next year in my drafts, because I don't want to be in this situation again. It's been really miserable.
Yeah, no, and that's it's a good conversation because we talked about it a ton in the preseason. It's been a kind of an ongoing thing with, especially early in the year with all the people bidding on closers, as you mentioned. It feels like fantasy football with all the running back committees. Like there's like 3 teams that like play their star running backs. Then it's just like this guy gets 2/3 of it. This guy gets 1/3, but this guy gets 1/3 might get all the touchdowns. Like, what are you going to do? It's kind of has that feel to it. I know it's different, but it has that feel. The hard part, and like when I drafted, and I know we talked about on the show, is like I have my top 6 guys. I wanted one of those 6 to walk out with. I did that in most drafts. But then you still got to hit on the speculative guys. I got lucky. I've hit on most of them, but there's still not some. I have a hunch if you did your same strategy next year on your speculative guys, you'd hit on a lot more than you did this year, just because that's just laws of, regression, whatever you want to call it. You can't, and you're not the only one. Like Scott Jenstead jokes about it all the time too. He finally got a save like a couple weeks ago for the first time. It's wild. It's absolutely bizarre out there. But the reason why I try to get at least one early is I don't want to spend a ton of FAAB money, and I still get caught up in it from time to time. But this year has been much different than normal. The concern I have is I don't think it's changing. I see this happening unless they change the rules. Like I heard on Jason Starkville with Glanville and Stark. Glanville had some ideas that because all the new rule changes, he said, well, if you want to get rid of sticky stuff and you want to get rid of the shift, maybe get rid of an extra bullpen arm so you can have all these specialized guys that come in and throw 95 to this or that. They can actually have relievers that can pitch. That could change the way the closers happen. I'm not sure that'll happen anytime soon, but that's, I guess, one way to do it. If it's the format we have now, I think there's going to be a lot of teams that are going to continue to use, like the Giants using Rogers and McGee makes too much sense. It makes too much sense having a lefty-righty situation. And I think more teams might go that direction. We'll see. But Alex Thistlewood makes a point. We drafted Neris, Ottavino, because Barnes had COVID, and Jordan Hicks thought we had 3 closers. Yeah, it's a lot of people did, man. A lot of people did. Technically, Neris got you saves if you still have him. Ottavino's had a few, but I doubt you still have him because once Barnes came back, most got rid of that one. But you didn't know Jordan Hicks was going to get Tommy John again. So it's just, or they didn't get it again. He got hurt again or whatever it was. It's just been a weird year. Like, you got to knock some of it up to that. Strategy was sound. Like you said, it's worked for you so many times. So why you can't beat yourself up for it now? It will be interesting next year, though, to see, especially just in general, like when we start seeing those like 2 early mocks with Mason. Where do closers go? Where do they go? It'll be very, very interesting to see where that happens. So Alex also says it's hard carrying these 1 or 2 guys that get whipsawed if you drop them like Robles. Yeah, It sucks. It really sucks. You get to the point, I can't remember if it was Vlad or someone else. You just kind of add these guys after a while, and you just go, you know what? I'm just going to play them for like a month because they're going to end up with 3 or 4 saves. We don't know when they're going to happen, but you just play them. You don't play the guessing game from week to week because you're going to miss out. It's like playing the old days playing Johnny VR. Well, I'm going to play him this week and he gets no steals. I sit him next week, he gets 6. Some guys you just got to play. It sucks. So, any other thoughts on that?
Yeah, I mean, I think the only thing is like a lot of these guys aren't good.
Well, that's another. Yeah, we've talked about that a lot too.
Like Hansel Robles, like he's not good. So if he's not getting saves, he's worthless. Like Gregory Soto has been decent, but he's like a train wreck. Lucas Sims, we talked about him last week as like, oh, I really wish I had him. Now he's given up. He's given up 3 runs, in a third of an inning, if he even got a third of an inning today, because his location sucks and because he walks a bunch of guys, And so that I think is the challenge. Is like, it's one thing to have a really skilled closer who's having access to saves. If that was the case, then great, then do it, right? But a lot of these guys aren't good, so you don't want them in their lineups. It's like,
that goes back to like. If you want a roundabout way, that's why I added Bailey Ober this week instead of a speculative closer going, okay, I'm going to go maybe get 4 innings and decent ratios and a couple strikeouts. Like, let's go see what happens. It's tilting. It's very, very tilting. Last question we have here from John Wilder. He asked, thoughts on Conforto rest of the year? Think he will get back to the high hopes that everyone had in the preseason now that he's healthy? Well, Toby did not have high hopes going into the preseason. So you've been right there. Obviously, he was hurt. So I
had reasonable hopes. I have
obviously not the hopes from last year.
Yeah. Like I wasn't drafting him, at pick 75 or whatever like that. But no, I mean I think he should be okay. I mean, it's a hamstring, so as long as he's healthy and he's back, I think he should. He obviously had a slow start to the season, but he was starting to warm up before he got injured. So it's summer. It's a good lineup that he's in. He's surrounded by a lot of good hitters. So I think he should do fine. I'm really looking forward to it. It's a really important league, so I'm excited for him to be back. So I see no reason why he shouldn't. But it's tough to answer a question like this because it's like, go look at and I know it's such a cop out, but go look at the projections. That's the most likely case of what he's going to do rest of the season, which are probably still pretty good. Like 15,
he's going to be pretty good.
Home runs, 260 batting average.
He's not going to for a big average. Well, I guess that's big. In this year, that's actually really big. But
so the Bat X has him at 254 with 11 home runs, 36 runs, 35 RBI, and 2 stolen bases rest of season. I could definitely see the over on the home run total there. But again, a lot depends. I mean, he only had 2 in 135 plate appearances. So who knows whether that's, but he also had a 7.7% home run per fly ball, which doesn't seem sustainable for a guy with his type of power. So
it's going to be tough. I hope he does well. It'll be fun to have him back this summer. I think he'll be good. I think he'll be very good. Just stay healthy and hopefully run hot with the home runs. We've seen it with him before. I'm not too worried about the average with him. I'm not counting on an average from him. Just hit the middle of the order, drive in some runs. Let's have some fun. So I'm with you there. But that'll wrap us up for tonight. Toby, any final thoughts as we head through another week? We're almost through the month of June, which would be about the halfway mark in the baseball season. We're getting close.
Not really. I don't know. I talk a lot about like my experience in going through these leagues a lot, in kind of providing some context and things like that. But don't worry, and I know I said I messed up the closers and I messed up Vlad Jr. The teams are on the rise a little bit. They're doing okay, so don't worry about me too much. But yeah, appreciate everybody listening as always. And, we're almost halfway through the season, which is kind of crazy to think about. I mean, we're a week away essentially from being halfway through the season.
Yeah, it's crazy to think that we're almost halfway through the season. At the same time, I'm like, we're only halfway through the season. Like, it feels like a long season because of just the chaos that it's been. It's I just what's around the corner is going to be it's going to be a crazy situation. So I'm looking forward to it. We'll be back with you guys every Tuesday for the most part, as long as random stuff doesn't happen. I will say we'll be here back every Tuesday. So thanks for listening. As always, you can check out Toby on Twitter at BatFlipCrazy. I'm at BD Entry. We'll be back with you guys next week. But this was Bubba and the Bat Flip, episode 88. See you guys later.